we have been able to flush out dangerous criminals who are hiding in the spaces that we had gazetted. We followed the procedure under international law by first making public announcement on the particular areas where we wanted members of the public who could be there to vacate. And as I've said, these are not habitual places of residence. These are gorges and caves where criminals were hiding. But the reason we followed this route is that we discovered that what these bandits had done is that they would steal livestock and retreat and stay in those places which are inaccessible and remote, and they would stay there for several months, and therefore they had invited civilians whom we thought, or we assumed could be, some of them could be members of their families, who may not necessarily be armed bandits, to live there with them. That's why we made the announcement and provided an opportunity for any law-abiding citizen who was in those places to get out. And that is in accordance with the established procedures of international law of conducting security operations. The situation has improved. We were able to flush out dangerous criminals from all the gazetted areas, and some of them, or many of them, used the 24-hour window we had offered to escape, but we had no alternative because we needed to provide any civilians in those places with time to move out. But those places now have been completely cleansed, and there are no criminals living in all the areas that were gazetted. Over the time that the operation has been going on, we have been able to recover in excess of 200 firearms voluntarily surrendered. We have deliberately delayed a forceful disarmament for strategic reasons, but we will get there because we believe there are many more illegal arms in the hands of unauthorized people in that area. But as a strategic measure, we have delayed that process, but we must get there at some point, because every illegal firearm in the hands of unauthorized people must be handed over to the government, either voluntarily or by force. Honorable Chair, we have registered significant successes. First, it is the first time we have a police-led, KDF-supported operation under the new constitution and Article 241. It has worked very well. The relationship between the security agencies has been wonderful. The input of other agencies, including NPR, has been exemplary. That is a good lesson for us in this space. Before we declared the operation, there was almost zero recovery. When livestock used to be stolen in those places, the recovery was minimal. But I'm happy to report, Chair, this operation has ensured that in cases where attacks take place, because we have had a few attacks even when the operation is ongoing, we have been able to recover about 78% of the livestock that has been stolen. We have made it clear to our officers and the agencies involved that we must move to 100% recovery, and it is going to form part of their performance targets. that in the unlikely event that a raid is successful, the stolen livestock must return. In the process of the 6 or so months that we've been having that operation, we've been able to arrest and in some cases neutralize dangerous bandits who had been responsible for the command of the banditry network. Many have been arrested and arraigned in court, and some of them were neutralized as they tried to engage security agencies in an exchange of fire. We have learned in the last 3 weeks that a number of suspected criminals who had escaped during the public notice we had given for the vacation from the disturbed and dangerous areas. Some of those criminals are trying to regroup and get back into the spaces from which they were repulsed or flushed out. We have put in measures to ensure that those places will not be accessible again to anybody under whatever pretext. In other words, Chair, the Corcoran Hills, I don't know whether you were able to overfly the Corcoran Hills. You will understand, no human being would live there. The Tandare Valley, the Malaso Escarpment, those spaces are not available for pastoralists or any other activity that criminals used to hide under to access those places. They are out of bounds, and therefore in terms of status, they are still gazetted. The orders are still active. We have not degazetted them. So we will repulse any person trying to access those areas. They, for our purposes, are still scenes of crime. We have credible information that there is an effort to try a few criminals to try and find their way into those spaces. I want to assure you, Chair, and the committee, it will not happen, and we will repulse them, and we'll use all methods lawful to make sure that the criminals hiding under the pretext of looking for pasture do not get access to the gazetted areas. Part of our phase 2 involves domination and occupancy of all areas that have remained ungoverned and provided spaces for terror and banditry to thrive. So those gazetted areas, we will provide security dominance. We are going to cover the entire of that area with security facilities. Some of them will turn them into training facilities for our recruits and security agents, both the Kenya Defence Forces and the National Police Service, KWS, KFS. So there'll be training grounds, including Mukogodo Forest. And just now that I'm there, I can mention that issue of the indigenous community. We have directed our teams there on a case-by-case basis, where it is established that the people who were living there are indigenous people. Ways should be sought to put them in maybe one section, and they have a right to continue living in that forest. So I think that information is new information, because there are people who have indigenous communities and they are not even harmful. They don't steal any livestock, and they are known by the local community. If you spoke to our former speaker, Mzee Kaparo, he'll tell you the communities know the thieves, they know the indigenous groups there, and they are there just to harvest honey, and they live there. those ones can be put in one corner in that forest and continue living there without interrupting their lifestyle, because they are not harmful to what we are doing. And if there are bandits who have accessed that place, then we will flush them out. The other issue is the mobility, again from the vice chair of the committee, the issue of a fluid operation. Actually, we are mixing both static and fluid operational formations. We have some special forces that are fluid. They are not static. And they are today they are in Koloa, another day they will be in Baragoi, another day we'll take them to Boni, another day, because, you know, having a static establishment is not a long-term solution. Criminals can have alternative ways of achieving their targets. So we have, especially within the special forces, fluid formations that move from one place to another. We've registered a lot of success, especially in the intersection of Elgeyo Marakwet and Tiati. We have a small problem of Kamulogon Forest, which is the intersection of West Pokot and Marakwet West. We have another small problem at the Amaya area, intersection of Baringo and Samburu. That's why you've had a few cases in the Pura area, Malaso and so forth. And so we have fluid formations that are supplementing the static formations. The other thing is Kisumu, Kericho. I'm sorry, my sister, the Member of Parliament for Kisumu West, if I appeared not to be on top of things. But contrary to that, actually, I'm very much on top of things. The only reason that I didn't have as much detail is the chairman said it was not part of the questions that I had come to answer. But I know for sure, and therefore I didn't want to spend a lot of time on it. It was a supplementary matter. But now that you have raised it, Honorable Member, I agree with you. The recent stock theft is politics, which was, you know, that problem arose around March when there were violent protests and people disagreed because part of the community there was supporting violent protests, which is their democratic right. The other one was not supporting, and then they disagreed, and then it convoluted the commercial disputes, and then it gave some criminals now took advantage of that and started stealing cows. And what you have said is true. We have information, some of the information as to where that livestock has been destined to. I can report, Chair, that until now, 17 heads of cattle have been stolen from that area as a result of the current skirmish. We have recovered 11 of those 17. 4 suspects, that means around 6 are still outstanding, and we have made it clear. I have instructed the Regional Commissioner of Rift Valley and the Regional Commissioner of Nyanza and their teams. The 6 outstanding heads of cattle must be recovered. If they are not recovered, then someone must take responsibility for it. Because we have leads, as the MP has said, we have leads to where that livestock could have been destined, even the ones that was killed. Chair, I can report we have arrested 4 suspects who have been colluding with the butchers in the area which the MP has said. And they are helping us with investigations. We will arraign them in court. So we are making good progress. It's not true that we can relax on a security matter touching on any part of our country. That would be a betrayal of our constitutional oath of office. Honorable Chair, that's where we are on that one. On the Lamu issue, the Chair and members, we have been able to make some good progress. And as I said the other time, I was before this committee, I think, or another committee. You see, we do not even report the many successes that we, very successful preventive measures that we do, because sometimes you don't want to alarm the public. But we have also realized there are gaps that we need to address there. One gap is that we have realized there are few criminals who are taking advantage of historical and genuine grievances which have been in that part of our country over land and other issues which we are resolving. And they are taking that advantage and using that perhaps to aid criminals, including Al-Shabaab terrorists. And the other gap is that there has been continuous encroachment of the Boni Enclave forest. And therefore, we have taken the decision. Number one, we are going to open up 6 security roads in Lamu immediately. Number two, we are going to draw a cut line, because some of the problems are being caused by people who have encroached into the Boni forest, and so there must be a cut line so that we know whoever, just like we have done in North Rift and other places, we say whoever is inside certain coordinates must leave so that we manage security. But right now there are people, some of them are pretending they are doing agriculture, but they are right inside the forest, and we've discovered some of them could be harboring criminals. And we have also discovered there are people taking advantage of historical injustices to aid and abet terror attacks. So we are on top of things. I have been there as chair sometimes covertly, even this week, because and this is where I also request for your support when you talk to your colleagues in the house. You know, some of them, they want us to be telling them when we are going to their constituencies all the time. It is not feasible all the time. Because like the current threats we have in Lamu and northern Kenya is a significant threat, and we are not able to transact all our interventions in the public realm. So we will need a bit of understanding. Some of it will do covert missions. Our aim is not to isolate any leader or make them look irrelevant. Our aim is to make sure that we achieve the results we want to achieve. So I've been there, and we will be going back there, and we have instructed the security teams there to bring proposals on and involve the public so that we agree on where the cut line will be, because we also want to carry the public along so that we are able to manage that space a little better. But we are making good progress. The equipment that we have started receiving is also going to boost that effort there. And I think, Chair, that is all I can report for now. The recent wave of attacks, according to the intelligence we have, was caused by politics. So that an underlying problem which has been there for many years, which was mainly actually commercial. So it was a commercial issue about revenue, which county collects revenue up to where. But you know, politics sometimes comes in and colors and takes advantage of that. So it was caused by politics, political differences, and I agree with you. The situation is not good, because a few of our people have lost their lives. And what we have done, as you speak, there is a team, high-level team from the ministry, which is on the ground now. And I have directed the Rift Valley security team, headed by the regional commissioner, to go and stay there because I'm going there myself and I want a report before I go there. We also realized that there were gaps, and we have already taken we have initiated disciplinary action against some officers whose laxity and connivance has led to this senseless loss of lives. Because if a crime is committed, it doesn't matter if livestock is stolen in Kisumu by a criminal from Kericho. It's just a crime. There is no politics about a cattle thief. There is no tribe issue. It's just a thief. And so when politics and other things came into play, and a bit of incitement, that's why we have seen the kind of losses we've seen. I want to assure the committee we will stop that. We'll stop the escalation of that violence. We will depoliticize the process. We'll be neutral, and we will do what is right. I've even asked my PS, because he comes from the neighboring area. He's in Kericho today, but I've told him to stay away so that we use the other officers we have who are not locally from that area to make sure that we clean that mess. It's not looking good, and it's a small matter because nobody is being evicted from their home. So just that thieves come from this side, they go and steal from the other side, then other people come and retaliate. So Chair, we will stop that orgy of violence, and it's part of the performance contracts of all the officers and security managers there that one more single life is lost. It must go with at least the explanation we'll be giving Kenyans is that another one incident, we must show a casualty on our side who has taken responsibility for sleeping on the job, because we cannot have a small matter like that just causing us havoc all the time. The schools that are closed, all schools that were closed because criminals had evicted residents, all the schools without exception will be opened. We have started a bit. Because of budgetary constraints, we are not able to reconstruct all of them, but some progress is already ongoing. We had 100 million. I think we've been able to get another 100 million, and will ensure every school that was shut or vandalized by bandits is not only repaired, but is also fully back into operation. I know the Honorable Sigei, member for Sotik, and the Honorable Liz Chelule, they were mentioning to a school where the children are sleeping in class at night. I'm sure you are talking about Kapindasum Primary School. I've been there 4 times, and we've been able to get for them some resources to finish that problem. I even left a promise there. The ministry is going to give 4 million shillings to support, but then also the Ministry of Education through the infrastructure will also support them. We will sort that problem, not just for Kapindasum, but also for other schools, Kasiela, Arabal, Mukutane, and all the schools that were vandalized, including schools in Kapedo, schools in West Pokot. I have 11 schools in West Pokot which we will reconstruct, and also in Elgeyo Marakwet, Laikipia, and Samburu. Finally, on the conditions our police officers are living in, that is the reality. It would be foolish for me to deny that we have challenges in our infrastructure. We have the task force on police reforms have finished their work, and they are just waiting for a date to hand over the report to the appointing authority. This challenge of infrastructure and welfare of the police is well addressed, including the other challenges that, the gaps that we have identified. For example, creating linkages between the National Police Service and GAO, the GAO and NPRs, all those issues, and welfare issues, including the welfare of NPRs, is handled through the task force, which is about to be presented, and the government will implement 100% all the recommendations of the task force on reforms in the National Police Service and Kenya Prison Service. Thank you. We do not just establish camps just like that. There is a criteria, and that criteria is not cast in stone. We keep on reviewing the siting of our security operation camps from time to time, because a place can be a corridor for movement of stolen livestock now, but as soon as you seal that corridor, criminals invent another route elsewhere. So you have to devise a way of either establishing a new camp or even moving this one, because what we are chasing for is peace. What we are chasing is crime prevention. It's not just the siting of those camps. But in the statement which I filed to this committee, the statement dated 17th August 2023, which is already available to the committee, I have listed the criteria that we use for the establishment of camps. It includes things like, and it's on page 4 of my statement, the frequency of attacks in that area, things like whether there's a county, an inter-county boundary to ensure that livestock stolen from one county do not cross to another and therefore bring recovery problems. Other criteria includes the threat posed within that particular area and so forth. So we have that criteria, but as I've said, it is not cast in stone. It keeps on changing depending on the assessment that we make from time to time. Honorable Chair and members, I was also asked to respond to item number 4, the number of reservists recruited and trained per sub-county. I have provided that information on a table on page 4 at the bottom, the entire page 5 of my statement, and part of page 6. Suffice it to say, Chair, in the interest of time, that in total we have recruited 2,057 police reservists, 2,057. We have trained 1,354, and 700 are yet to be trained. 703 are yet to be trained. The distribution per county and sub-county is in my statement for all the counties that are under review. We have still outstanding requests which we are still processing for additional NPRs in places like Marsabit, which has been pending for a while, and even where we are not finished training NPRs, we have secured in this budget a bit of money under our security operations budget, which will ensure that we train all the NPRs that have been recruited and process maybe a few more requests from especially the emerging threats in Northeastern, where we need a bit more of local NPR support in our counter-terrorism effort. We are processing the necessary cabinet papers and memorandums ourselves, the Kenya Defense Forces and other relevant agencies, and the President has supported us that we're going now to have for approval in cabinet a plan for these areas in terms of the education system, schools. Part of it has begun. We've started rebuilding some of the schools, but there are many more schools that were destroyed in that part of the country, and there are many schools, new schools, that we need to establish. We are going into agricultural projects. Some of them have already begun, like Pekera irrigation scheme, which had collapsed in Baringo, is now back. There is the irrigation which was sponsored by partly Red Cross, partly Government of Kenya, at the Koloa area at the intersection of Elgeyo Marakwet and Tiati. That irrigation program is already on track, and we're going to restart it again in September. The second phase will also involve the construction of peace schools, mainly in Kerio Valley and other areas of intersection, to build schools that can accommodate children from different communities and build a new generation of peacemakers and lawful citizens as a way of fighting banditry in the long term. That plan that is pending approval by Cabinet will also involve the allocation of a number of water facilities, water dams, and both small and big dams, roads, and so forth for that area as a long-term way of making sure that that banditry culture does not return in those areas. The border issue, the border was not opened. What was agreed on is the schedule for reopening of the borders. But as you have rightly pointed out, we reviewed that decision based on an escalation of threats that we experienced. I would like to say this in a nutshell for the comfort of the committee and for the comfort of the country. We will reopen the Kenya-Somali border. It will be opened. And we will defeat terrorists. So what we have decided is to temporarily suspend that process until we get on top of the current wave of threat, and we are almost there. In the last 3 weeks, 1 month, we have managed the situation, and we will zero in and be a little more focused in flashing out those threats, and there's a lot of work going there silently, covertly, and we will succeed. The border will be opened and terror will be defeated. We have started procuring the equipment we require, and therefore the question of the nature of transport of our officers in the area that is under this operation, that question should not be a question any longer. We are going to provide the most modern means of equipment to protect the lives of our officers against both physical attacks by criminals, but also remote attacks like we have seen in northeastern and the Lamu area through IEDs. So we've taken care of that. We have enough procurement which should be delivered any time from now, and we've sorted out that problem. We'll have enough MRAPs, we'll have enough APC carriers, that are armored personnel carriers, mine resistance armored vehicles. We are also going to acquire air support for that work, and so the criminals have nowhere to hide anymore. And we'll do that not just for the North Rift Maliza Uhalifu operation, but also the counter-terrorism effort. And so I think we are in good space.